Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I'm joined by the amazing Joshua Pangborn. Josh, how you doing today, man?
I am doing very, very well. This is the highlight of my day, so I'm very glad to be here. So,
That means more to me than you could ever know. I would have never guessed I would ever hear anybody say that on the face of the planet. So, thank you very much for that, my friend. But before we talk about why you're here, Josh, I would like for the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. You are a writer, actor, director based out of New York City. You are the founder of Sidekick Productions, an award winning, queer, fat positive, sex positive production company focused on horror and horror adjacent stories, and the creator of the popular queer soap opera Skeleton Crew, as well as Demon Doctor, a queer cross between Buffy and the X Files. X Buff Files? Oh, we'll get there. And also the star of The Art of Blowing It, a mockumentary created by Ashley Monique Menard, as well as a number of horror shorts. So, first off, how did you become a part? Like, how did you get the idea to start Sidekick Productions?
well, that's a very long question. No, that's a very good question, though. I think it's important to hear the answer to it. No, so I graduated from college. Let me take you back. I graduated from college, and I knew that I wanted to do theater and I wanted to make things in the city. So I created my production company. It was called the Living Room Theater, and that was something that existed for about 3 years, and then that sort of went by the wayside as 21-year-old dreams do. And then as I got a little bit older, and this is about 2010 now. I realized I wanted to go back to making theater and making art and things. So I came up with, but I wanted to have something more than just what the Living Room Theater was. The Living Room Theater Company was there to make my shows, but I wanted to have something a little bit more than that when I did something this time. So I first of all knew that I wanted to call it Sidekick Productions because I wanted to play with my love of sidekicks, specifically characters like Robin from Batman and Robin. And then I knew that I wanted to focus on telling stories about people who are often the sidekicks. So queer characters, fat characters, characters who are not usually considered the mainstream stars. I wanted to make them the mainstream stars. And so I set out with Sidekick Productions to tell those stories. And by 2014, I loved what I was doing, but the theater was a little bit exhausting because lots of people in if you've never been to New York City, everyone listening, everyone in New York City makes theater, and all of your friends make theater, and they never have time to come to your shows because they have their own shows that they're putting on. So I
Right.
thought, you know what? Let's try something different. Let's try making film and television. So I segued into that world, and I haven't looked back since then. So, but that's the compressed answer to what your question was.
Well, no, and you talk about going into film and television. Now you've written and starred in two queer horror feature films releasing this year: A Taste of Youth and The Brooklyn Butcher. And also, you just released Homophobias, your debut collection of horror short stories. I do have the link for that down in the description as well, guys. So that came out in September. So make sure you guys are checking that out as well. And also, I have all of Josh's social media links down in the description, as well as all the links for Sidekick Productions. So we know that you just released Homophobias, a bunch of horror short stories. Do we have any release date on A Taste of Youth or The Brooklyn Butcher yet?
We are looking
Brooklyn
at.
Butcher. That is a hard one. How dare you? Because that's a hard one to say.
I love my alliteration. I mean, you again go back to my comic book roots. You've got Lois Lane, Peter Parker. So you got Brooklyn Butcher. I mean, it's what it is. So,
Yeah.
I've had in Skeleton Crew, the actress who played the main character, Veronica. She would always complain about the speeches I would give her and the alliterations I would. She was like, "Why are you doing this to me?" And I'm like, "Well, because it's fun." No, not because it's fun. Because it sounds good. That's why. Because it sounds good. It's art. It's art. That's why anyway. Um, Brooklyn Butcher and A Taste of Youth do not have firm, solid release dates yet, but I'm hoping that we'll be premiering them in New York City in October, and we will hopefully have them on maybe Amazon Prime or Tubi in the next 3 to 6 months after that. So we shall find out. We're still doing the festival circuit a little bit as well. So Brooklyn Butcher in particular is doing quite well in the festival. As of this recording, we are the top 22nd in the world for most awarded web productions in the Web Series World Cup, and we are the fourth most awarded U.S. created project. So
Congratulations. That's extremely and that's awesome. Like that's incredible. Well, the best way to stay up to date on when you guys are going to be able to see A Taste of Youth and the Brooklyn Butcher is by following Josh on social media. And like I said, following all the links down in the description. So they're winning awards, guys. You're going to want to check this stuff out. So, we know what you're doing now, Josh, and a little bit about what you're doing in the future. But here for a little bit, I'd like to go back to the past and talk about what it was that got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Josh, the first horror movie you watched was?
This was a hard question when you asked about it, and I had to think about that because I'm not as young as I look. I look very youthful, and that's why I make movies called The Taste of Youth. But I thought back, and I'm almost certain my very first horror movie was An American Werewolf in London.
What a great start to your horror life. Still one of the best movies ever made, man. So, do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen it?
I was probably, I would say maybe 10.
Still very young.
Yeah,
You
no, this was, whenever people ask me this question, why this is one of the earliest movies I can remember really watching. It was always on Comedy Central. I don't know why it was on Comedy Central, but it was always on Comedy Central. And I mean, it's a funny movie, but I wouldn't particularly say of all the movies I'm putting on Comedy Central, if I was creating the lineup for Comedy Central, I would pick American Werewolf in London. But I was very grateful that it was on there. So,
And I still do think I think that's why I love this movie so much is because it's a little bit of everything. Like it's a horror movie, it's a love story in more than one way. Like you have Alex and David. There's so many different things happening in this movie and so many different people to fall in love with. It is a comedy. There's just a little bit of everything going on in the movie. So, do you remember who you were with when you watched it for the first time?
I was definitely alone. I was a very lonely child, and that's sort of how I existed. But no, I grew up in a very small town of about 500 people. So, and that was like the whole like mountainous area. So you really didn't have a lot of people that you saw on a regular basis. So I was definitely alone. There were probably one of my many dogs. My mother had many dogs when I was growing up. She still has many dogs now, but she had many dogs, and so I'm sure that one or two of them were in the room with me. But it was definitely in my bedroom in my home little hamlet of upstate New York. So
Yeah. And this movie, like I said, it's so impactful in so many different ways. But you remember which scene it was, Josh, that affected you the most?
well, I mean, I love that you talk about how it's a little bit of everything because I really think that's sort of really was something that it impressed itself on me that way because that's sort of what my works that I create are. They're a little bit of everything. You've got all of the different genres sort of rolled into one, and then you have these moments of real comedy and love and romance and all. But then you get this real moment of horror, which is the one that I connected with most, which was the first transformation scene, which is just stunning. It's such an incredible piece of practical effects and makeup. It's just I can still picture it. I mean, I can still hear the song. I can still I mean it's a very visceral scene and you it stays with you for many decades later. So
Jesus, it's so hot. Like, oh God, it's so it's and what I love about this is it looks painful, which you would
it does.
think with your bones, that hand, like you would think it would be a painful experience. And you're right, this is one of the absolute best werewolf transformations of any film ever. Like, I don't think anything has ever come close to touching this scene.
I agree with you. I mean, the fact that what you just said, it's so painful. And because I've seen Werewolf, obviously, I've seen Werewolf Transformation since then in other movies, and it never looks as agonizing as it does in this
Right.
scene. Like this scene is destroying him from the inside out, and it's so yeah, it just lives with you, and it's. I mean, just thinking about it now, I'm like, ooh, but
And Jack's like, told you, I
yeah.
fucking told you. Like, um, and something I've always loved about this is every time we see Jack, he's deteriorated
Mm.
more, kind of like David's mental state.
It's
You know,
so
like
great. It's so I love the progression of his makeup. I love the progression of the character. I love Jack. Jack is such a fun character. Um he's really 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 fun.
Can I have a piece of toast?
In season 2 of Skeleton Crew, for anybody who wants to watch, one of the shticks that I do for the season is every episode starts with an homage to a cult film, and episode
nice.
4 starts with an homage to American Wolf in London. It's the scene where David's running through the forest in his dreams, eating the deer, and he catches it and everything. I went out to Forest Park in Queens and I stripped down to my nude underwear because I'm an actor, so of course I have nude underwear.
Sure.
And I ran through the forest park, and you catch me eating a pint of raspberry sorbet. So it's a really really fun little homage, and uh, this movie is really such an inspiration for so much. I think.
Yeah. And I feel like our first horror movie, it does that because it resonates with us, and
Yeah.
we catch that high, watching it, and then we're chasing that dragon, trying to get that horror high again. So, um,
And I
and this
love, I
movie,
love, I love that first opening scene, and because I remember the first time I saw the movie, I somehow never saw the opening scene where they were in the town and the slaughtered lamb and everything. I didn't see that. I because again, it was on television, so I just turned it on probably, and I caught. So I started in the hospital, and that opening scene. Then the next time I saw the movie, it was I wanted to spend more time there. I loved that opening world that they were telling us about and all. But
yeah.
there was so many different every aspect of the movie. You just kept going to a different section you wanted to spend more time in, and that was such a fun. That's what makes it such a rich film in many ways. I
Mhm.
think.
And I agree with you. Like every time you watch this movie, you attach yourself to something else.
Mm-hmm.
They're not afraid to go there and do that. So this movie does have its. There's not a lot of death in this movie, but all the deaths are impactful. Do you remember which kill it was that affected you the most?
Uh, I would. I mean, it's probably. That's a great question. I mean, they're so wonderfully again, I used the word already, but it's such a visceral kills. Every kill is very graphic in the way that it is done, or at least depicted afterward. And I loved all of them. I mean, I think probably the one that affects you the most is David's death. I mean, because it's the most tragic. I mean, well, they're all sad because everyone's an innocent person in this movie that dies. Literally everyone that dies. There's not like a single bad person that dies because even the person at the werewolf at the beginning who gets killed is most likely an innocent person who just was cursed with lycanthropy. Uh, so it's hard to say, but I guess because we spend the most time with him, David.
Yeah, and that's fair. And now I gotta ask because obviously remakes, requels, sequels is kind of all the rage in Hollywood now. Is American Werewolf a movie you would like to see them take another stab at today, or do you think they should let a sleeping dog lie with this one?
I love the pun. I think that honestly, I wouldn't want to see another one. Because I don't think it would be the same thing. It would be
Yeah.
it's an unnecessary recreation.
Just ask American Werewolf in Paris.
We don't have to though. That's the joy. We can pretend it doesn't exist. No, I shouldn't say that because I celebrate all movies. Everyone, I love all movies, but some movies I just don't need to see again, and that might be one of them. But but no, I just don't think that you would get. It's like when Fox did Rocky Horror Picture Show again. I don't know if you saw that, but I did, and it's just not the same thing. You can't recapture that kind of magic with a movie that's a cult film. You can't do that, and it's you have to do something really different with it. And I don't think that Hollywood would be creative enough, or no, I'm sorry, not creative enough, but risky enough to do something different with it. And that's the problem.
they would just CGI the shit out of it, like they did with
well,
Paris.
there'd be so much CGI, and it's not what I want. What makes this movie so special is how practical it is, and has so much about that. Like I can't like Jack's makeup would not be makeup anymore. It would be uh um he would look like a character from Endgame or
Yeah.
Infinity Gauntlet. I can't remember the name of the movie. It's because and that's what's sad about the whole thing is that we don't get enough. And again, I'm not. CGI has a good purpose and is very useful in movies, but I think that what makes movies like American Werewolf in London is so memorable and stick with you is that you feel it. I just recently rewatched Beetlejuice because I don't know, there's a sequel coming out soon, I heard. And I was watching it and I'm like, it's just amazing how lived in this whole movie feels because it's so practical. It's all
Right.
practical effects. And the same thing with American Werewolf in London. It's I love the practical effects aspect of it. And yes, it maybe is a little bit cheaper at times or but it's somehow also more believable, I think. So
Well, I think like you were talking about CGI can be useful. I completely agree. I think that CGI, I've always looked at practical effects should be your meat and potatoes, and CGI should be your salt and pepper seasoning.
yes,
You know,
I love that. That's a great way to look at
yeah, the meat and potatoes is what's important. But if you want to season it up just a little bit and give it that little bit of kick, sprinkle your CGI in there. But don't
yeah,
put too much salt and pepper on your potato; or it's going to taste like shit. So that's where I stand on it.
I love that. No, I love that. And sometimes you do need a CGI character.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine not having Gollum in Lord of the Rings. Like that was even today watching it again a couple of years later, more maybe 20 years later, he's still a very real feeling character because they again partially because not every other character was CGI, so therefore they didn't have to spend all of that time on that.
Right.
I mean, there were still, and then a lot of what they did with the Hobbits was practical effects to make them look like hobbits. And then there are other times they did CGI, but they didn't do it all the time. And so I think that I love what you I love. I'm gonna have to use that and steal that at some point.
I give this to you, my friend.
Thank you. I will take it and run with it. So
So like I said, obviously with these movies, they're all so important to us. And I love that American Werewolf is what it started for you. But here for a second, I do want to throw a little bit of a curveball at you.
Sure.
My little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Josh? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Oh my goodness. Oh, I dread this question always because it's so hard.
And
It's
that's
like,
why I never tell anyone I'm asking it, because I
oh
want
my
to see your pants answer.
goodness.
This is what you get for that, for doing the fucking Brooklyn Butcher shit to me. That's payback now.
Hey, I accept it. I will pick the Brooklyn Butcher as my. No, I'm not gonna pick the. Brooklyn I'm an actor, which means I have an ego, but I'm not that much of an ego. So my favorite horror movie of all time.
Look, I'm an actor and I have an ego, but not that much of an ego. My favorite is The Taste of Youth.
Exactly. There we go. I'm only the co-star in that one, so no.
Right.
You know, it might have to be. It might have to be. It might have to be Scream, just because that's the one I put on all the time. It's at least my comfort horror movie because when I was sick last week, I watched all the Scream movies again. So, but it could be Hellraiser as well.
The first one?
The first one. Well, I like to steal something from one of my friends at Monster Makeup Company. He likes to say that Hellraiser 1 and 2 is just one movie. So I like to do that. So I would say both of them are but I because I also just rewatched those over my non-COVID illness that I had last week. So.
Well, I've been quoted many times saying Hellraiser 2, Hellbound is my favorite.
It's such a good movie.
So good. I'm in hell. Help me. You know, like that shit is scary, man.
And again, practical effects.
Yes. Yes, it's so gooey and sexy, and there's just so much about Hellraiser 1 and 2 that I think are just so encapsulating, and infectious. Like
Mhm.
I watch those movies and you can't help but feel sexy and like the bondage and like it's Clive Barker, you beautiful bastard. Like
I know. It's everything I love about. I love eroticism in horror. I love
yep,
body horror in horror. I love creepiness in horror.
yeah.
Not all horror is creepy, but I think I can say that safely. It's just there's something about it that's just so you just keep going back to it, and it's also so interesting too, as from a filmmaking perspective, how the character of Pinhead has existed as one of the major figures in horror in the past couple decades, but he's like barely in the movie and not even really like the face or the villain of any of the movies of the first two. So it's such an
Clive didn't
interesting,
even he did not want Pinhead on the cover on the poster.
yeah.
Like
I
Clive Barker was
understandably
very
so.
vocal about that. Like that's not my villain here, guys. Like that's like the Cenobites are not our main villains here. But I love what they ended up doing with 1 and 2. The later in the franchise and Pinhead becomes a foreground character, it really takes away a lot of the mystique and sexiness of it.
Yeah,
But I'll always have a soft spot for Hellraiser 1 and 2 for sure.
yeah, absolutely.
I know I said it at the beginning, guys, but we're at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, don't forget I have all of Josh's social media links down in the description. So make sure you're following him to stay up to date on all the amazing things he has coming up for us. But before I let you go, Josh, we always bounce back to the same question. We're going to go back to American Werewolf in London. And what we're going to do is rank this movie on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking it on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. We're not being critics. What we're doing is ranking American Werewolf in London on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, a 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Josh, what would your ranking of American Werewolf in London be?
This is just purely based on my very first time watching it and not
Yes.
on like its
How much
effect
it
on me.
affected you on your first time?
On my very first time watching it, I would have to say probably 4.5.
Yeah, it's up there. Fantastic movie, dark ending, amazing practical effects, scary, funny, sexy. What's not to love about this movie?
It's all the things that really much have shaped me into who I am as a movie maker today. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's all of those adjectives describe what I make, and I think they come from this movie. So
And there you go. So, like I said, guys, make sure you're following along because you're going to want to check out these films when you're able to. So, Josh, please don't go anywhere, my friend. I got a couple more questions for you. Everyone else, if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. It does help build the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Our links are in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.